Welcome to People's HRT Talk 2024. We are happy to have you today and hope you have a nice cup of tea with you. I do. Today our topic is a very trendy topic. We have considered the requests that came in from you throughout 2023, and you guys wanted AI and how AI can help HR in 2024. Here we are today talking about AI's influence in HR, navigating the future of work in 2024. Today, our speaker is Luxsho Logan. Let me give a little intro to him. Over the past 18 years, Luxsho has built his sales career in both Sydney and Singapore. He is a pro when it comes to HR tech, and his data-driven and methodical approach has resulted in successfully developing top-notch sales professionals and forging strategic partnerships across APAC and MEA regions. Prior to People's HR, Luxsho has also held up leadership positions in Korn Ferry and SAP. But wait, there's more to Luxsho than just his stellar sales career. He has smashed it on cricket field back in the day when he's not closing deals. He's also a published author and a family man. Located in Singapore, please welcome our VP of Global Sales, Luxsho Logan. Over to you, Luxsho.
Thanks, Pachalia. Good afternoon, good morning to everyone who's joining us on this webinar. Thank you so much for the introduction, Pachalia. So we're here to talk about AI's influence on HR, and more specifically, how we're going to navigate the future of work in 2024 and potentially beyond. Now, the term AI kind of conjures a lot of sort of thoughts and definitions in people's world. So what I thought we talk about to begin with is exactly what is AI, and more importantly, how does it apply to the world of HR? When I ask HR professionals or any business professional, when it comes to your thoughts on AI, typically the response I get is what we've come to know what AI is all about. And it's typically what you see in the world of generative AI, which is your ChatGPT of the world, and of course, Bard from Google. But to really, truly appreciate what AI is and where it's come from, what I'm going to do is take you back about 40 years in terms of where it all began. And so for those of you who are not familiar with machine learning, is essentially where AI is, where it starts from, which is a subset of AI. So machine learning, for those who are not familiar with it, is essentially complex algorithms and linear algebra that is used across mass stores of data. And so when you have multiple areas of data, you can basically decipher through mathematical formulas common trends and patterns in that data. So what effectively machine learning does is, through creation of models, allows you able to decipher those trends and then hence make predictions. So there's some really, really cool things you can do with that in terms of eliminating what a human would actually do. Let me kind of share with you some sort of common examples. If you go to a bank and you're applying for a loan, normally it wouldn't be a loan officer these days that will actually be making the decision whether you are worthy of the loan or not. What will happen is machine learning in the background is using a number of different statistical models to decipher whether you are worthy of a loan or not. And they're using data based on your age, your demographics, your location, maybe credit history, to essentially make a prediction whether you are going to default on the loan or not. And this all happens in a matter of split seconds. So this is where machine learning has come into play. Something a little bit probably closer to home for those of you who are into music like myself. So Spotify, if you listen to particular songs, you will notice that particular playlist or recommendations of songs are recommended. And this is all through machine learning as well. So they're basically making predictions and applying that to what you're likely to listen to. So there's some really, really great applications when it comes to machine learning. Now, fast forward that in the last sort of 10, 15 years, we've gone a little bit deeper. And this is what we talk about neural networks, which is further subset of machine learning. Now, neural networks aims to mimic the way humans make decisions through logical approaches based on what data is actually presented to you. So now all of a sudden the technology has become so good, it can actually make a decision whether something is what it is or what it's not. So now that's why you can get images of cats and dogs, and that's when AI can then make decisions whether it actually is a cat or a dog in its basic form. So there's a number of sort of infinite amounts of applications in which machine learning, neural networks, and now AI as a whole can be used in any business context. But what about HR? Okay. So there are a number of functions that AI can be applied to when it comes to the applications and our roles in HR in general. Think about recruitment in terms of how you can ensure that you're hiring the right type of people. Onboarding, making sure that experience of the candidate as they come into the organization is getting the right type of material and training during those critical few months in terms of their job. Learning and development, in terms of the type of programs and the types of programs in terms of what they can be learning on the job, when it's required and where it's required. Performance management in terms of where they need to be, what type of programs again, or what type of training can be applied to that person in terms of their next role. Succession planning, making sure they're ready for their next role. And of course, what we all talk about is experience management. Experience management being, what is it that the staff member or the employee is actually experiencing within the organization. So number of things you can actually do when it comes to AI, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But what I thought I'd share with you is a recent study that was done by Gartner. Now, this was really interesting. So 76% of HR leaders believe that their organization, if they don't adopt or implement AI solutions as little as 12 to 24 months, feel like they're going to be lagging against their competitors in the market. Now, what was really interesting, Gartner did another study within a different group of people with the CEOs. And more than half the CEOs in that same study believe that if they don't apply any AI to their organization, they believe that in the next 10 years, they probably will cease to exist. So that just tells you how much of an importance that AI is having on organizations, not just to HR, but to business in general. Now, the question I often get asked in my role when I deal with HR professionals is, Luxsho, given the impact of AI to our organizations, am I going to be impacted here? Will I be out of a job in the next sort of few years? It's all very relevant questions in terms of how AI can impact us. So my response to that is it depends. So where AI has been really useful, especially when it comes to predictive intelligence, is where roles that tend to be very repetitive, that can be automated, will definitely be impacted by AI. But it's not all doom and gloom, because as HR professionals, given that there are a number of things that we are needed to do in terms of creativity, thinking outside the box when it comes to strategic type decisions, AI can't replicate that or automate that. So there's still hope in terms of how our roles as HR professionals will play. But any repetitive function or administrative function will absolutely be impacted in AI. Now, a very similar sort of experience has happened to us in the last, if I think back in the last 20 years, and that's the impact of the internet. Now, if you think about how the internet revolutionized us in terms of how we worked and how we communicate with each other, internet had a phenomenal impact in terms of where we gathered data and where we kind of gathered information. Now, one industry in particular, the banking industry, was impacted by the internet, but it wasn't all doom and gloom. So if I kind of reflect on my own experience in the banking sector, whenever I needed to transact with the bank, whether it means I needed to make a deposit, some cash, or make a withdrawal, 20 years ago, I would need to have gone to the bank physically to do that and work with the teller. Now, fast forward, now most of that can be done through online banking, through the internet. And so all of a sudden now there's no need for working with the teller. Now, what happened to those tellers? Were they all let go? No, they weren't. And so what ended up happening with their jobs, they're completely transformed. And so what you find now with those particular tellers, they're now working with customers in more complex type of approaches when it comes to banks, such as loans, for example. And so what will end up happening again is we will adapt and we will transform our roles into something a little bit more strategic and move away from the automation that I think probably a lot of us are not really interested in doing it anyway. So that's where I foresee AI taking its impact. So there are a number of different functions we can apply AI, which we just spoke about. And so what I thought I would do today during this webinar is just talk about a few functions and a few areas where we can apply automation and AI to your roles and some of these things that you can do today. And I want to start off with recruitment. And if you're not using applications such as ChatGPT for job descriptions, I would highly encourage you to do it. Now, what applications such as generative AIs like ChatGPT and Bard have allowed us to do is create job descriptions literally within a matter of seconds. Now, what it's been fantastic at doing is gathering data from different subsets, not just within your organization, but globally, and creating really compelling and more detailed job descriptions that are going to be more applicable to the job at hand. What this does is it helps reduce any poor choices of languages that can help, which could hindrance any job application. And more importantly, can remove any unknowing biases that you may be putting into your job description, which may also be hurting, in terms of the type of applicants you're receiving or may not receiving. So if you're not doing it, I would strongly encourage you to use generative AI for when it comes to creating job descriptions. Moving forward, AI has now enabled us to help accelerate the process when it comes to job postings. Now, job postings in general have had some mixed results when it comes to HR professionals or hiring managers or even HR professionals alone. Typically, what we've seen in the past is job being posted and receiving all sorts of different type of applicants, whether they be wanted or unwanted. But the wanted applicants tend to be fewer, and the ones that aren't wanted tend to be far significantly more. Now, what has happened with that is because when job posts are actually been displayed and positioned into the applicants that are not necessarily the right audience, that's where things tend to go a little bit wrong. And so what now AI can do is, and we've seen this happen actually with a few other platforms such as LinkedIn as an example, but what now generative AI and AI in general can do with a number of HR technologies is find exactly who is the right fit in terms of the candidate. So using the job description you've been able to generate, then find the right type of applicant who would be most suitable for your job. More importantly, what it'll also do is it'll be able to predict the type of salaries that are most suitable based on the role you've created, and then position that type of role in front of those type of people. So what ends up happening is you end up getting the right type of person applying for the role or engaging with your job ad, which will then lead to a more effective conversion rate, or at least an improvement in terms of the right type of applicants coming into your company organization. So here's an interesting fact. So I think a lot of people I've spoken to have used generative AI for job descriptions, but did you know you could also use it for crafting personalized messages to candidates, especially when it comes to the sourcing of great talent? So if you're not doing that, I would strongly encourage you to do that. So what we've also seen based on research and speaking to our customers and of course other HR professionals is that generic messages are usually the default option when it comes to reaching out to candidates. But doing so also leads to a very poor experience when it comes to those particular sort of candidates coming into the organization, or messaging in such a way that actually has no application or relevance to them at all. So what now AI can do is they can create personalized messages using the platform and ensuring that it's actually more relevant to the person you're reaching out to. Doing so not only just boosts the engagements, but it also improves the conversion rate. So more likely the candidate responding to the recruiter or hiring manager or the HR professional. So something, if you're not doing it, I would strongly encourage you to do it today. Now, applicant screening is an interesting one that we've come to see with the power of AI when it comes to the world of recruitment. Now, applicant screening is a very interesting one, and we've seen a number of technology companies do that through scanning of resumes, looking for keywords that allow only shortlisted candidates to go to recruiters or HR professionals. But what I would say to that is there's been limited success using these technologies because whether the applicant may not be using the right wording, or the technology doesn't pick up the right type of wording on the resume, leads to really good candidates missing out on the shortlist and hence going somewhere else. Now, the technology has become so good these days that AI can now broaden its search, not just to the resume, but through other sources to get an understanding of that applicant. So think about your LinkedIn profile, think about your any other public profiles, such as any other social media, or maybe some media that's out there about you as an individual. So technologists, for example, can then look at my profile, can look at maybe some publications online, and then grab a sort of holistic sort of assessment of who I am before they start shortlisting me as a candidate to a hiring manager, as opposed to just purely depending on my resume. So what ends up happening is you end up getting a more holistic view of that candidate, and you prevent good candidates from missing out the shortlisting process. So some great technologies coming this way when it comes to applicant screening. The world of online interviewing has also really grown as well with the application of AI. Now, what's generally missing with the online interviewing is subtle cues of gestures and facial expressions can often be missed based on words or based on questions and words being used. So I've seen this done a couple of different ways with HR professionals. One, it's a recorded session based on a list of questions where the candidate will then give their response, and then the responses are interviewed. Or it's done in real time where the HR professional or recruiter is interviewing the candidate one-on-one in real time. But the technology works in both ways. So what it's able to do now is, because there's so much data available to us, we are now able to use technology to pick up subtle cues in terms of way people express themselves or how they respond to questions. So think about people in terms of the way they pause, the way they may blink, the way they may stutter, in the way they're expressing themselves. We can pick up a few things, whether people are actually being genuine or truthful in what they're saying. So an amazing way in terms of actually eliminating the wrong type of candidates early on in the process, rather than finding out later down the track when they're not the right fit. So it's amazing what the technology can do now in terms of fast tracking and ensuring that you're getting the right type of people in your organization. So those are some of the applications that we can use when it comes to recruitment. But something that's often not spoken about when it comes to recruitment is the onboarding process. So you've done a really amazing job, a hard job about attracting talent, but what about the onboarding process? So what research tells us is that the first 6 months of any new recruit is the most important. And it's the highest likelihood of someone actually leaving an organization when the onboarding process is not done correctly. I can't tell you how many times I've seen many organizations who hire some great talent, and just a matter of a few months, they end up leaving the organization, the people they've actually hired, because of the poor onboarding experience. Because fundamentally, those people had no idea what was expected of them. They didn't meet the right people, they weren't connected, and it was just an overall poor experience. Now, how do we kind of mitigate those things through the use of technology and AI? Because we can't do everything at once, and there are so many hours in a day. So how can we then use technology and automate that process to help improve that? So imagine a scenario where the time in which a candidate signs their contract, they receive automated email responses to then advise the candidate that this is what their first week will look like. They will be meeting these people. Those meetings were already in their diary. That'll all be scheduled. They'll already be received some of the learning material. They already have a plan in terms of what their first month, 2 months, and the first 3 months will look like. Now, that experience is much better than coming into an organization and not knowing what to do. So you can automate this today, in fact, with AI, and some of the technologies out there can do exactly that. Now, I just want to share with you why this is important from a cost perspective, because it does have a financial consequence if you don't get this right. Now, the time it takes to go and hire somebody, if you think about the time it takes to go into the interview process, that person gives notice period to then join your organization, can take 2, 3, if not 4 months. And the cost of not getting that right can lead up to even 100%, if not 300% of that employee's salary. Now, the time again to go and to rehire that person can also be significantly costly as well, in terms of the time of the recruiter and the hiring manager that also needs to partake in that search. So getting it right at the beginning is going to save you a lot of time and money than later down the track. So think about AI and how you can automate that process when it comes to the onboarding process. So learning and develop is an interesting one that is often not spoken about, and I would stress it's also really important, not just the onboarding process, but as the employee has the entire career within your organization. And think of it from this perspective. What we know today may not be relevant, actually may not, it won't be relevant in the next 2-3 years, because the dramatic pace in which things are changing, whether it be in your function or in the industry, is important that we're continuously learning. And so the skills we have today are not going to be relevant tomorrow. And so that continuous learning and development is going to be key, not just at the beginning when we start our career, but throughout the journey of our jobs. And this is going to be more important as we progress our career, whether we become more senior or even when we cross into different functions altogether. And so how do we ensure that we're getting the right type of learning and development to the right type of people at the right time? And this is where AI and automation can be really, really key. And this is not just applicable for the data that's available to your organization, but this is taking data across the globe based on what experiences other people and other organizations have had based on particular functions and particular time points. So think about a marketing professional, a HR professional, salesperson who is going along their career in your organization, and then come 8 months or 10 months down the line, they need a refresher on a particular type of program. That's then delivered automatically through micro learning. Doesn't necessarily have to be time that's invested out of the field. And then come 6 months later, another set of training and development is also positioned in front of that candidate, so they are then developed in the right type of time frame. So these are all delivered in micro learnings at the right time, the right place, rather than waiting for the candidate to ask for that. So it's all about positioning everything in real time when it's needed and when it's required. Now, why this is important? Because one or two things is going to happen here. Either the candidate's going to be frustrated that they don't understand what's going on in your organization and not getting the right development, and they leave your company, or worst case, they end up staying in your organization, not being productive, and actually being a detriment to the performance of your company as a whole. So ensuring you're getting the right learning and development at the right time is going to be key in any organization. And AI is a great trigger for doing that rather than waiting until it's too late. So the employee experience is a hot topic, and it was spoken up quite a lot, especially during the pandemic, where everyone was working remotely and people weren't too sure about what people were doing and how do we engage our staff. And so there are a lot of applications AI can be used because of it. Now, think about the traditional way in terms of how we did employee engagement. And there have been some great tools out there, but I would probably argue that they were done a little bit too late. And what I mean by that, so think about the traditional way we gauge employee performance or satisfaction. Typically, what HR would do is they would send a survey out to their staff. They would ask them a whole series of questions. Then the staff member would send that survey back, or it would be automatically triggered back to the HR person. And then the HR will collect that data and then make an assessment in terms of what's required. Normally, that period of time from when the survey is actually sent to when it's received and collated with the actual insights could take as much as 3 months, as long as 3 months. Now, 3 months in this day and age is a long time. A lot of things can change in 3 months. And that's in a best case scenario. And so a lot of cases where I've seen a number of organizations, it can take as long as 6 months even, if not a year. And that's far too late. Now think about AI and what it can do. AI can now go into situations where it can track in terms of people's leave, attendance, what they're writing in their emails, how often are they logging into work, how often are they engaging with their staff members. There are a number of different variables that can come into it where AI can then make an analysis whether someone is engaged at work or disengaged at work, or if they're not behaving in their most appropriate manner. Now, what then technology will allow you to do is then trigger certain responses that can help mitigate any risk of that person leaving or doing any damage to your organization. So if there is a risk of someone leaving on an individual level, AI can now trigger whether someone is at risk and then send the right type of response to them or the HR professional, so then they can take action with that particular employee to ensure that they don't leave or they don't do any damage to themselves or the company. So these are really, really good things that you can now do with AI that will now be able to ensure that there's a positive employee experience, not like months away, but in actual real time. So this technology is not perfected yet, but what I'm seeing is in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, there's some really good applications where this will be ready to be applied to the market. So stay tuned for this. This is looking to be really, really positive. So I think a lot of us can acknowledge that AI is here to stay. And there are a number of great benefits in terms of what AI can do. Now, at the same time, I've also met HR professionals who have started embarking on their AI journey and who have told me they've actually got zero impact from an AI investment or in investing in AI type technologies. And I would probably agree with them. That's a possibility. Now, what I would recommend anyone who are thinking about moving into AI sooner rather than later is to ensure that you're measuring the impact in anything that you're doing. So whatever you're applying the AI application to, make sure you can measure it. If you're not able to measure it, it's very, very hard to measure its overall impact on its impact as a whole within your organization. So if there's one thing you can take away from this webinar as a HR professional, and if there's something that you're looking to invest in yourself first, I would strongly recommend data literacy. If you can decipher data, if you can analyze data, and you can make sense of what data is telling you, you're already halfway through your journey. But what I'm seeing is a lot of people don't know where to start or don't really understand how to make sense of data. So it's probably one of the biggest investments you can make in yourself as a HR professional, especially as we move this direction of AI. But again, if you can't measure its impact, you're not going to see any tangible benefits. Now, if you're looking to where to start, focus on speed and efficiency over anything else, because the true benefit of AI and automation is the speed of doing things. So if things are not done in a faster pace, then you're not going to see the material impact of your investment there. So focus on speed and efficiency more than anything else, and you will see your ROI accordingly. So let me leave you with one final thought when it comes to AI and automation. And while it has its positive impact in the world in which we live in, and especially in HR as a whole, it does have its limitations. So think of automation as the real area which AI can benefit us. We're still going to need the human dimension. Humans are still going to be here to make the strategic decisions. They're going to be there to make the more creative decisions where AI is not going to have its ability to do so. Think about some of the biases that can also happen when it comes to AI. When it comes to model and data, they're all been trained based on historical data. And if the data has not been looked at and there are not certain guardrails that are deciphering some of the exceptions to the rules, sometimes there can be biases in the data. So it's something that you will need to be conscious of when you're looking at AI technologies. Technology is there to automate and speed the process, but think of the human element to verify it. So that's where it's really, really critical and important. Let me kind of give you a sort of real life example that happened to me not too long ago. I was using Google Maps, and Google Maps is an application that is in fact using machine learning and AI technologies to work out what is the most optimum route to take when I'm driving to work. Now, there was actually a road closure because there was some roadworks being done. but Google Maps had told me to continue on my journey through the roadworks. Now, if I was following the AI blindly, I would get myself in all sorts of trouble following the path in which it set out for me. But the human in me, the logical human, the ability to think outside the box, realizes actually that's not the right path. I actually need to make a detour regardless of what the technology is telling me. So these are sort of things that we also need to be aware of, especially when it comes to HR applications. The other thing as well, I'd also caution as well, especially when it comes to data security and data privacy. And this is something I would strongly encourage people who are just starting their journey. Tools such as ChatGPT, especially when you're using generative AI, they are public forums. And so when you are entering data, just know that it is being recorded. So when you are putting in data, try not to use vital secure data or data that is that needs to be protected and that has a lot of privacy issues along with it, because if you enter it into these sort of tools, then there's risk of that being exposed. So just being aware of that is also something that you will need to be cognizant when it comes to using AI platforms. So what are some of the next steps? Where do we take this from here? So we've covered a lot of different topics here, especially around recruitment. We've spoken about learning and development. We've spoken about the onboarding experience. We've spoken about the experience management. Where do I start from here? There's a lot of different things going on here. So besides the data literacy part, which I would strongly encourage you to take on if you haven't done that, what I would say to go back with your team and make a list of some of the things that you feel in your organization you could automate today. So we spoke about recruitment as the sort of first step, because that typically is the easiest way of entering. And if it is recruitment, then absolutely there are a number of applications we spoke about which you can apply AI technology. But if it's not, what I would suggest is making a list for yourself within your respective teams and think about what are some of the things that you're doing today that could be easily automated. What are some of the tasks that are repetitive and administrative that, you know what, I don't think that's for me. I think I could let a machine do that for me to help me speed up my process. Once you're able to identify that, then what I would suggest is there are a number of application technologies that you could then take the step forward to start automating that process. If you're not sure, please feel free to reach out to the team at PeoplesHR, because they'll be sure to help you in terms of some of the areas which you can actually do that today. Now, to make it really easy for you to think about where you should start, what I'm going to leave here is a small little quiz. I'm not going to ask you to do it today, but I'll leave the QR code here to take that quiz. It should take you about 10 minutes, but there are about 10 questions in that quiz, and it'll help you just to understand where you are in terms of the maturity curve when it comes to AI adoption. There is no right or wrong answer here. Everyone's journey is different. So I just thought it'll be very useful for anyone who's starting out today to then use this quiz to help you embark on that journey. And those results will be for you, where you can then take it from there within your respective organizations. And then with that, I thank you all for your time. The future of work is calling, and so are we. I hope this webinar has been informative and helpful. Please feel free to reach out to me and the team. If there's still any questions that you're looking to get some insight on, or you're not too sure about where to begin, please reach out, and the team and I will be more than happy to help embark on that AI journey. Thank you very much.